There comes a moment in every person's life when silence is mistaken for weakness, when kindness is seen as surrender, and when your truth is twisted by the noise of someone else's insecurity. You sit there, heart pounding, mind racing, not because you don't know what to say, but because you're tired. Tired of explaining yourself, tired of being misunderstood, tired of people using your calm as an opportunity to push you down. But let me tell you something right now. Your silence has never meant you were defenseless. You were just choosing peace. And there's power in that. There's a storm you've kept inside you for far too long, not to destroy, but to protect. And it's time to tap into it. Defending yourself doesn't mean you become loud. It means you become clear. It doesn't mean you become aggressive. It means you become unshakable. Because the real power, it lies not in overpowering others, but in refusing to let anyone overpower your truth. So today, I'm not here to teach you how to argue. I'm here to remind you how to stand, how to hold your ground with grace, how to walk away still whole, and how to defend your soul without ever raising your voice. Before you ever open your mouth in a room, before you ever let someone's words penetrate your soul, you've got to ask yourself, do I know who I am? Because if you walk into a conversation not knowing your worth, the room will define it for you. The world will throw labels, assumptions, judgments, and expectations your way like daggers. And if you're not armored in self-belief, they'll stick. You'll start to shrink. You'll start to second guess. You'll start to explain yourself in ways you were never meant to. See, confidence doesn't start when the conversation begins. It starts in the silence before the words. It starts in the car before you walk into the meeting. It starts in your prayer, your mirror talk, your solitude. If you don't know what you bring to the table, you'll sit down and accept crumbs. You'll let people talk over you, push past you, and leave you questioning your own truth. But when you walk into that space already full of purpose, full of clarity, full of dignity, then it doesn't matter who tries to rattle your cage, because you didn't come looking for validation. You came rooted. You came ready. There is a weight to knowing your worth that cannot be imitated. It's not arrogance. It's not pride. It's quiet strength. It's walking into a room and not needing to be the loudest because your presence says enough. Most people are out here performing for approval, chasing nods, likes, claps. And in that chase, they forget themselves. They forget what they stand for. But when you know your worth, you no longer perform. You show up, you speak truth, and you let the chips fall where they may. You understand that your value isn't up for debate. It's not on the table for negotiation. You're not selling yourself, you're honoring yourself. And that changes how you carry every sentence, every pause, every response. You don't over-explain. You don't beg people to understand you. You speak from conviction and let the truth settle where it may. And people feel that. They may not like it, but they'll respect it. Because deep down, we all recognize someone who stands tall in their own spirit. And that's who you've got to be, not just for them, but for yourself. The problem is, too many of us try to defend ourselves in arguments when we haven't even defended ourselves in our own minds. If you don't believe you deserve to be heard, it will show in your voice. If you don't believe your experiences matter, it'll show in your hesitation. People pick up on energy before they pick up on words. That's why some folks can say very little and yet command the entire room. It's not the vocabulary, it's the conviction. You've got to do the internal work first. Face your insecurities. Acknowledge your fears. Heal from those old conversations where you were silenced, dismissed, or misunderstood. You can't change what others did to your voice, but you can decide what you'll do with it now. Will you keep suppressing it to keep the peace, or will you let it rise steady and sure? Because your story deserves space. When you've done the inner work, you stop looking for someone to rescue you from conflict. You become your own anchor, and in the middle of heated words, you stand still, not because you're frozen, but because you're sure. See, the goal is not just to win arguments. That's too small. The goal is to be so deeply aware of your own value that arguments no longer pull you into emotional chaos. You don't need to defend every accusation. You don't need to prove yourself to people who already made up their minds about you. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing. because you're no longer living to be understood by people who refuse to see you. That kind of strength only comes when you know your worth, and not just in your career or your achievements, but in your essence. You know what you survived. You know what you've built from nothing. You know what it took to even be standing here today. So why would you throw all that away trying to earn validation from someone who hasn't walked your path? You don't owe them a breakdown. You owe yourself peace. You don't owe them an explanation. You owe yourself consistency. You're not here to beg. You're here to stand. And that standing starts before any argument ever does. Now, here's the truth. Some people will never see your worth because they can't even see their own. And that's not your burden to carry. When people feel small, they make others feel smaller. They poke, they provoke, they gaslight, hoping to pull you into their storm. But when you know your worth, you don't join storms. You stay the sky. You don't shrink to match their chaos. You stay steady, grounded, clear. You understand that disrespect says more about them than about you. And instead of reacting, you respond. Instead of clapping back, you speak facts. Instead of matching energy, you rise above it. That's the power of worth. It frees you. It releases you from the toxic dance of trying to prove your light to those addicted to darkness. And it teaches you something precious. You don't have to show up to every battle. Some battles are won by walking away with your head high and your peace intact. Too often we teach people how to treat us by how we treat ourselves. If you keep downplaying your accomplishments, brushing off your pain, and apologizing for your existence, people will follow your lead. They'll believe you when you show them you don't think you matter. But when you walk with reverence for yourself, when you speak like someone who knows their time is valuable, their voice is sacred, their energy is not to be played with, then the room shifts. You don't even have to demand respect. It meets you at the door. And when it doesn't, you leave. Not out of weakness, but out of wisdom. You stop chasing places where you have to beg to be seen. You stop defending yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You stop explaining your heart to those who've proven they don't care to hold it gently. That's not pride. That's protection. And you've earned the right to protect your spirit. Every time you walk into a situation where tension is present, where someone's looking to argue, to belittle, to dominate, you've got to check in with yourself. Am I walking in full, or am I hoping this person will fill me? If it's the latter, you're vulnerable. Because if they withhold that validation, you'll crumble. But if you come in full, then nothing they say or don't say changes your foundation. You can listen without absorbing. You can speak without needing to convince. You can hear their criticism and still hold your head high. Because you're no longer built on compliments or consensus. You're built on character. And character doesn't beg. It doesn't flinch. It doesn't back down when truth needs to be spoken. It stands quietly, firmly, unshakably. The deeper your worth, the less you argue. Because you realize not everything deserves your voice. You're not trying to win petty debates. You're not caught up in ego wars. You're not rattled by someone's bad day disguised as tough love. You see it, you recognize it, and you decide, is this worthy of my energy? Is this aligned with my purpose? Or is this just another trap to pull me out of alignment? Most arguments aren't about truth. They're about control, about fear, about insecurity. And when you know your worth, you stop participating in battles that were never yours to fight. You stop trying to fix people through conversation. You stop hoping they'll finally get it. You release them, not with hate, but with peace. Because when your identity is rooted, you don't need their understanding to feel whole. You will be misunderstood. You will be misjudged. You will be misquoted. That's part of life. But how you respond reveals whether you truly know your worth. If every opinion rattles you, you still have work to do. If every disagreement sends you spiraling, you still have growth ahead. And that's okay. This is not about perfection. It's about intention. About choosing every day to walk in the direction of self-respect. About anchoring yourself so deeply in truth that people's noise becomes background static. You hear it, but it doesn't move you. You see it, but it doesn't own you. You walk into the room not to prove, but to be. To be present, to be powerful, to be real. And when you get to that place, arguments lose their grip. because you've already won the biggest fight, the one inside your own mind. And finally, remember this: the moment you truly know your worth, everything changes. Not because the world becomes easier, but because you become unshakable. You stop being a puppet pulled by the strings of other people's moods. You stop shrinking to fit into conversations that don't value your perspective. You stop handing over your power in the hopes that someone else will finally approve of who you are. Instead, you stand. You breathe. You speak when it's necessary. You walk when it's wise. You love yourself enough to be silent where noise would cost you your peace. That's not weakness. That's the highest form of strength. Because when you know your worth, you don't need to fight every battle. You become the kind of presence that makes people think twice before they even raise their voice. Stay calm, stay dangerous. That's not just a phrase, it's a mindset. It's how the strongest people move in this world. Not loud, not wild, not reactive, calm. Because calm is control. Calm is the language of power. But don't get it twisted. Calm doesn't mean weak. Calm means measured. It means you've mastered yourself to the point where the chaos around you doesn't enter you. You see, real danger doesn't make noise. It watches. It waits. It listens. And when it moves with precision. That's how you've got to carry yourself. Because when you've been through enough, when you've been broken, counted out, underestimated, you learn not to waste your energy proving anything. You stay grounded, you stay intentional. But behind that silence, behind that calm demeanor is a fire, is a storm, is a person who can flip the entire situation if they chose to. That's what makes you dangerous. Not the volume of your voice, but the depth of your silence. Not your fists, but your focus. Not your rage, but your restraint. That's power. That's the art of becoming untouchable in a world that wants you loud, reckless, and exposed. There are people in this world who thrive off your reaction. They poke at you, push your buttons, try to drag you into arguments, chaos, drama, because your energy feeds them. And when you react without thinking, they win. That's why staying calm is not just wise, it's war strategy. You deny them control. You take back your peace. And that peace, that's dangerous. Because when you stop reacting, you start thinking. You start seeing the bigger picture. You stop being manipulated by emotion and start being driven by mission. And that shift right there, that's where you go from vulnerable to unstoppable. Stay calm, not because you don't feel, but because you've learned not to let feelings dictate your moves. Emotions are real, but they're not in charge. You are. You built that discipline. You've trained yourself to respond with wisdom, not impulse. And that control is your edge. It makes you unpredictable. It makes you solid. People don't know what to do with someone they can't shake. So let them throw shade. Let them doubt you. Stay calm and stay dangerous. You ever seen someone so calm in a storm you just knew they were built different? That's the kind of presence you want, where people sense that something in you is deeper than what they see. Not because you're showing off, but because you're holding something powerful. You're not chasing claps. You're not clapping back. You're studying the room. You're conserving your energy. You've got plans. You've got purpose. See, calmness is not passive. It's preparation. It means you've already run this scenario in your mind. You've already practiced peace in private. So when war shows up in public, you're unshaken. That calmness, it terrifies insecure people. Because they don't understand how someone can be so still, so poised, yet so capable of flipping the script if necessary. That's the danger in your calm. It's the warning before the storm that never has to come unless provoked. That's the elegance of discipline. It's the difference between someone who reacts and someone who responds with intention. And that makes you someone they can't predict, someone they can't control, someone they will regret underestimating. They told you anger makes you strong, that yelling makes you heard. But what they didn't tell you is that real strength is in your ability to stay composed when everything in you wants to explode. Anyone can lose their mind. Anyone can lash out. That's easy. But to stay calm while the world tests your patience, that's elite. That's mastery. And when you combine that calm with the capacity to act, when you know you can defend yourself mentally, emotionally, spiritually, even physically, you become a walking force. You don't go around starting fights. You don't swing first, but you finish with dignity. And the only time you speak loud is when silence isn't enough. People feel that energy. It's quiet but commanding. It's the reason some people look at you and get nervous. They can't read you. You're not giving them what they want. You're not dancing for their dysfunction. That makes you dangerous in all the right ways. Because you've mastered the part of yourself that once controlled you. You've taken back your inner power, and now your silence says more than your words ever could. Sometimes the most dangerous person in the room isn't the loudest. It's the one who's been through hell and came out patient. The one who doesn't need to prove themselves anymore because they already know what they're capable of. They've seen their own darkness, faced their demons, died to old versions of themselves, and rose up better, stronger, wiser. That kind of person moves differently. They walk slower, speak softer, but when they act, it's final. That's who you're becoming when you choose to stay calm under pressure. You're not denying your strength, you're refining it. You're keeping it sacred. You're not throwing it around for attention. You're preserving it for purpose. And when that moment comes, when it's time to stand up and act, you do it with such clarity and confidence that the world has no choice but to take notice. That's not violence. That's vision. That's not chaos. That's control. And the more you train yourself to stay calm in storms, the more dangerous you become to anything that tries to pull you off your path. You don't need to show your strength to every stranger. You don't need to respond to every insult. You don't need to prove yourself in every situation. That's how you burn out. That's how you lose your focus. Real power is selective, is strategic, and staying calm allows you to stay in control of where your energy goes. You learn to protect your peace like it's sacred, because it is. You fought too hard to get here. You bled for this mindset. You cried for this wisdom. You earned this calm. So why throw it away over people who thrive off chaos? No, you stay calm, and when they try to test you, that calm becomes your boundary. It says, I know who I am. I don't need to bark to prove I'm a lion. That's the difference between a fighter and a warrior. A fighter swings at anything. A warrior waits for the right moment. And when that moment comes, it's over. You've got that warrior in you, that focused, intentional, disciplined version of you that's not out here playing games. Stay calm. Stay dangerous. Some folks only understand power when they feel resistance. And when they don't get that out of you, they call you cold. They say you've changed. Yes, you've changed. You stopped leaking energy in places that weren't worthy of your presence. You stopped wasting breath trying to convince people who were committed to misunderstanding you. You stopped entertaining the drama because you realized your destiny was louder than their noise. That's growth. That's evolution. And you'll lose people on the way, but you'll find yourself. You'll find a deeper level of peace that no one can give you and no one can take away. That's the calm they don't talk about. The peace after pain. The silence after storms. And once you find that, you guard it. Not with anger, not with walls, but with wisdom. Because staying calm doesn't mean letting people walk all over you. It means choosing your battles. It means knowing your worth. And it means having the courage to walk away from anything that costs you your power. That kind of calm, it's sacred. And yes, it's dangerous. You ever realize how the most powerful people in life say the least? They don't need to dominate every conversation. They don't jump at every opportunity to argue. They just observe, calculate, wait. Because they know when they speak, it matters. When they move, it shifts things. That's what you become when you practice restraint. When you stop being moved by ego and start being guided by purpose, your words start to carry weight. Your presence becomes unforgettable. You don't just take up space, you command it. And that doesn't come from volume, it comes from presence. From being so sure of yourself that you don't need to flex your strength. You are your strength. Calmness in that light becomes your sharpest weapon. Because no one sees it coming. They think you're soft. Until you move, they think you're quiet. Until you speak, they think you're passive. Until you lead. That unpredictability, that controlled stillness, it's power in its purest form. And it's yours if you train yourself not to break every time life throws a test. The old you would have snapped, would have reacted, would have screamed to be heard. But this version of you, you've learned that composure is louder than chaos, that walking away is stronger than clapping back, that your energy is too expensive to be spent on temporary emotions. You've learned to breathe, to think, to hold the line. You've learned that not everything deserves your fire. Some things only deserve your silence. And in that silence, your strength multiplies. Your clarity sharpens, your peace deepens, and the world takes notice. People feel it, even when you say nothing. That's the real power of calm. It turns the whole room into witnesses. Because staying calm doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're ready. It means you've got nothing to prove but everything to protect. So walk like that, live like that. Calm mind, dangerous focus, unshakable spirit. You've been carrying that sword your whole life, ready to fight, ready to defend, ready to prove to the world that you're not someone to mess with. And maybe that sword helped you survive. Maybe it protected you when no one else did, but now it's heavy, it's sharp, and it's cutting things you love. It's time to put it down, not because you're weak, but because you're wise. Because healing doesn't happen with the blade in your hand. Healing happens when you pick up the mirror, when you stop swinging at the world and start looking within. The mirror doesn't lie. It reflects back the parts of you that need attention, not destruction. It shows you the wounds you've been hiding, the pain you've buried under pride, the fear that's been dressed up as anger. And when you face it, not with judgment, but with love, you start changing for real. The sword reacts, the mirror reveals. And if you want to grow, if you want to evolve, you've got to get honest with yourself. Stop blaming, start becoming. Look in the mirror and see not just who you are, but who you're meant to be. The sword will tell you to cut people off, to prove them wrong, to be louder, harder, colder. But the mirror tells you to slow down, to breathe, to ask, why did that bother me so much? It makes you face your patterns, your trauma, your part in the story. And that's where the real work begins. Anybody can fight. Anybody can point fingers. But it takes a different kind of strength to say, I've got healing to do. It takes courage to sit with your own reflection and not flinch when it shows you your shadow. But that's where transformation happens. When you stop fighting the world and start working on yourself. When you stop trying to win arguments and start learning from pain. Because sometimes the enemy isn't outside. It's the version of you that refuses to grow. The version of you that swings the sword every time someone gets close. And the mirror shows you that. Not to shame you, but to shape you. So if you want peace, if you want purpose, if you want to break cycles that have been running your life, use the mirror, not the sword. There's a reason some people never heal. They're too busy fighting battles that started inside of them. They go from job to job, relationship to relationship, conflict to conflict, swinging that same sword, cutting everything that threatens their ego. But the problem isn't always out there. Sometimes the war is within. And until you look in the mirror and deal with what's hurting you, what's haunting you, you'll keep repeating the same pain in different places. See, the mirror doesn't let you lie. It doesn't let you escape. It makes you confront the parts of you that are still bleeding. The parts that never felt enough. The parts that learn to survive instead of feel. And if you're brave enough to face that, you can finally stop the war. You can stop reacting from old wounds. You can stop bleeding on people who didn't cut you. That's the power of the mirror. It forces you to grow up, to let go, to forgive. Not just others, but yourself. Because sometimes the hardest battle isn't against them. It's against a part of you that believes you're unworthy of peace. The sword feels good in the moment. It gives you the illusion of strength. You clap back, you defend your pride. You feel powerful for a second. But after the dust settles, what did it fix? What did it heal? Did you feel better or just more exhausted, more guarded, more alone? That's what the sword does. It keeps you fighting. But the mirror, it gives you clarity. It asks, what am I still carrying? It doesn't care about being right. It cares about being free. Because freedom doesn't come from domination. It comes from understanding. And when you use the mirror, you stop reacting from insecurity and start responding from identity. You stop being controlled by what hurt you and start being led by what's healing you. That's growth. That's power, not the kind that intimidates people, but the kind that inspires them. Because when you walk into a room with peace in your spirit and truth in your heart, you don't need a sword. You become a mirror for others. You show them what's possible. You show them that strength can be soft, that peace can be powerful. You ever meet someone who doesn't fight back the way the world expects them to? They don't swing. They don't scream. They don't stab back with their words. Instead, they respond with presence, with compassion, with confidence that comes from knowing who they are. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. That's what happens when someone trades their sword for a mirror. They've done the work. They've faced their pain. They've cried in silence. And now they don't fight people. They fight patterns. They don't waste energy on revenge. They invest it in becoming. And when you live like that, you stop needing to destroy others to feel whole. You start protecting your peace instead of your pride. That's real transformation. That's what makes you different. Not how sharp your words are, but how deep your healing is. Not how fast you react, but how well you reflect. And that reflection, that's what sets you free. Not free from conflict, but free from being ruled by it. Because you've learned that everything doesn't need your sword. Some things just need your stillness. It takes real power to sit with your triggers and not let them turn into weapons. To feel the fire rising in your chest and choose to listen instead of lash out. That's emotional maturity. That's the fruit of someone who's picked up the mirror again and again, even when it hurt. Because healing doesn't always look beautiful. Sometimes it looks like sitting in your car after a tough conversation and realizing that anger wasn't about them. It was about me. Sometimes it looks like apologizing for a reaction that came from an old wound. Sometimes it looks like catching yourself before you say something you can't take back. That's what the mirror teaches you. It teaches you to pause, to breathe, to ask better questions. Where did that come from? What am I really feeling? And the more you practice that, the less you need the sword. Because now you've got tools, you've got awareness. And that awareness is what transforms pain into power. Not destructive power, but the power to choose peace when chaos would be easier. You're not here to be a warrior for war's sake. You're here to evolve, to rise, to break generational patterns, to show the next version of you and maybe the next generation what healing looks like in real time. That starts with the mirror, with looking at your reflection and saying, I will not pass this pain forward. I will not let what hurt me become how I hurt others. That's the decision that changes everything. That's how you take your story back. Because the sword might win the moment, but the mirror wins your future. And when you live from the mirror, you stop being so easily offended. You stop making everything about ego. You start choosing your response instead of being controlled by your reaction. That shift, that's what makes you magnetic. That's what makes you wise. Because you've become a master of yourself. And once you've mastered your inner world, no outer chaos can break you. That's the reward of the mirror. It makes you unshakable. Not because life gets easier, but because you've gotten deeper. We've all got battles, we've all got scars. And for a long time, it made sense to carry the sword. It made sense to protect yourself, to stay guarded, to keep people at arm's length. But what if that season is over now? What if it's time to drop the weapon and pick up the mirror? What if your strength isn't in how many fights you win, but how many patterns you break? What if the next level of your life isn't about defense, but about reflection? That doesn't mean you let people walk over you. It means you get so rooted in who you are, you don't need to swing to be safe. You don't need a cut to be respected. Your peace becomes your protection. Your awareness becomes your weapon. And when you walk like that, when you live from a place of self-understanding, not self-defense, that's when everything starts to shift. Because now you're not just surviving, you're evolving. You're becoming who you were always meant to be. And that version of you doesn't need a sword. It needs the mirror. Every time life tests you, you've got two choices. React from the wound or respond from the wisdom, the sword or the mirror. And the more you choose the mirror, the more you start to heal what used to hijack you. You start seeing things differently. You start realizing that some of your greatest enemies were just unhealed parts of yourself. That some of the fights you picked were just reflections of inner wars you hadn't faced yet. But now you're ready. Ready to stop reacting, ready to start becoming. And it begins with that one decision. I will use the mirror, not the sword. I will stop trying to prove and I will start trying to understand. I will be honest about where I hurt. I will take responsibility for my growth and I will love myself enough to do the hard work. That's the way. That's the calling. That's the path to becoming powerful, peaceful, and whole. There comes a point in your life where you've got to make a decision, not out of weakness, but out of wisdom. A decision to walk away. Not because you're scared, not because you're giving up, but because your peace is more valuable than your pride. Because your growth matters more than proving a point. Sometimes holding on is hurting you more than letting go ever could. And when that moment comes, when your soul gets tired of the same cycle, the same pain, the same disrespect, you owe it to yourself to walk away with dignity, not in anger, not in bitterness, but in quiet strength. In that still, unshakable confidence that says, I don't need to be where I'm not valued. Dignity is not about silence. It's about self-respect. It's about knowing that your presence is a gift, not something to beg people to appreciate. When you walk away with dignity, you stop asking for explanations. You stop waiting for apologies that may never come. You don't create drama, you create distance. And that distance, that's not loneliness. That's clarity. That's healing. That's elevation. Walking away isn't a loss. It's a lesson. It's the moment you choose you over chaos. That's where your power lives. We've been taught that strength is staying, that real love is enduring anything, that loyalty means tolerating disrespect. But I'm here to tell you, that's not strength. That's survival. And you were not born to survive cycles that keep you small. You were born to grow, to evolve, to rise. And sometimes rising means leaving behind what you once accepted. It means realizing that peace is better than attention, that respect is louder than noise, that silence can be stronger than screaming. Walking away is not walking out, it's walking up to a new level of self-worth, up to a new standard, up to a version of yourself that refuses to shrink just to make others comfortable. And when you walk away with dignity, you're not burning bridges, you're building boundaries. You're not punishing others, you're protecting yourself. Because you've learned that your time, your energy, your love, they are sacred. And if someone can't handle them with care, they don't deserve access. That's not pride, that's protection. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. And you have the right to choose peace over pressure, love over loyalty to pain, dignity over drama. Sometimes we stay too long, not because it's right, but because we're afraid. Afraid of the unknown, afraid of what people will say, afraid of being alone. But let me tell you something, peace is not found in a place where you're constantly proving your worth. It's found in the quiet of knowing you don't need to beg to be loved. And yes, it hurts to walk away. It hurts to release what you thought would last forever. But nothing hurts more than betraying yourself just to keep something broken alive. Dignity means choosing yourself even when it breaks your heart, even when it shakes your world, because deep down you know what's meant for you will never cost you your peace, your sleep, your identity. You don't have to chase alignment. You don't have to fight to be chosen. Real love, real respect, real connection, it will never make you question your value. So if you're standing at the edge of a decision, wondering if it's time to walk, ask yourself, what is this costing my soul? And if the price is your peace, your dignity, your joy, it's too expensive. Walk away. Not with rage, but with reverence for who you're becoming. Walking away doesn't mean you didn't care. It doesn't mean you didn't try. It means you cared enough to stop destroying yourself for someone who didn't see your worth. It means you tried, but now you choose you. And that's not selfish, that's sacred. That's you reclaiming your time, your value, your energy, because not everything deserves a second chance. Not everyone deserves a front row seat to your life. Some people only understand your worth when you're no longer available. And that's okay. You're not here to convince them. You're here to evolve. And that evolution sometimes comes through exit. You don't always get closure. You don't always get clarity. But But what you do get is a chance to begin again, a chance to rewrite your story with dignity instead of desperation. So don't let your fear of being misunderstood keep you stuck in what's already over. You don't need to explain your decision to people who weren't in your shoes. You don't owe anyone your silence if it's suffocating you. What you owe is honesty with yourself. And if your soul is whispering it's time to go, honor it. That's not weakness. That's you waking up to your worth. Letting go doesn't mean erasing the memories. It doesn't mean pretending it never mattered. It means acknowledging it shaped you and still choosing to move forward, because pain is a teacher. And sometimes the lesson is knowing when enough is enough, when staying becomes a form of self-betrayal, when compromise turns into sacrifice, when loyalty becomes your cage. Walking away with dignity is the highest form of self-love. It's you saying, I may miss you, but I won't lose myself for you. It's you declaring, I can love you from afar, but I refuse to abandon my soul. That's powerful. That's divine. That's healing. You don't need closure when your peace becomes the conclusion. And the day you walk away with your head high, your voice steady, your heart open, not bitter, not broken, that's the day you become unstoppable. Because now you've chosen not just a new path, but a new posture. One of strength, one of wisdom, one of unwavering self-respect. That's what makes walking away a breakthrough, not a breakdown. We spend too much time fighting for things that are already finished, trying to revive connections that have already expired. And we do it because of comfort, familiarity, or fear. But sometimes God allows something to fall apart, not to punish you, but to free you. Because he knows what you can't see yet. He knows what's ahead requires your hands to be empty. And walking away is how you make room for what's next. You don't need to cling to what's collapsing. You don't need to force what's fading. When it's time to walk, walk boldly, walk peacefully, walk with the quiet knowing that you did your part. And now it's time for something greater. The people who were meant to go the distance with you, they'll never make you question your place. And those who don't, let them go. Without resentment, without rage, with grace. That grace isn't for them, it's for you. So you can close the chapter without poisoning the pages. So you can leave with light in your soul instead of bitterness in your heart. That's what it means to walk away with dignity. Some of the most powerful decisions you'll ever make will happen in silence. No grand announcements, no long explanations, just a quiet shift in your spirit that says, I'm done. And when that shift happens, it changes everything. You stop participating in your own pain. You stop tolerating things that drain you. You stop dancing for the approval of people who don't even respect your rhythm. That moment of quiet resolve is sacred. It's you honoring your worth in a way that doesn't need noise. It's not a scream. It's a surrender. Not to them, but to the truth of who you are. And when you walk away from what no longer serves you, you don't walk empty. You walk lighter, freer, stronger. Because now you're carrying clarity. Now you're walking in purpose. And you're not looking back for validation. You're not hoping they chase you. You're moving forward for you, for your peace, for your purpose, for the version of you that's tired of surviving and ready to live. You deserve relationships where you don't have to beg for the bare minimum, where respect isn't conditional, where your voice isn't silenced. And if that's not what you're experiencing, you have permission to leave. Not out of spite, but out of self-respect. You were not created to constantly defend your right to be seen, heard, loved. And the longer you stay in places that dishonor you, the more you disconnect from who you really are. So don't wait until you're broken beyond recognition. Don't wait for one more betrayal, one more disappointment, one more apology, followed by the same old behavior. Your spirit knows when it's time. Listen to it, trust it, honor it. Walking away might be the hardest step, but it will lead you to the softest peace. And peace, real peace, isn't found in being right or being loved by everyone. It's found in being whole, in knowing that you showed up with love, gave it your all, and still chose yourself when the love wasn't returned. That's strength. That's courage. That's dignity. Every chapter has an ending. And endings don't mean failure. They mean freedom. Freedom to grow beyond the limitations of your past. Freedom to choose different, to love different, to live different. And when you walk away with dignity, you're not closing the book, you're turning the page. You're choosing to believe that the next chapter can be better. That healing is real. That peace is possible. You're choosing faith over fear. And that choice, that's the start of a new story. A story where your voice matters, where your needs aren't minimized, where your love isn't manipulated. That's not a fantasy, that's your birthright. But it begins when you stop settling, when you stop shrinking, when you stop making excuses for behavior that keeps you broken. Walking away doesn't erase your history, it honors it. It says, thank you for the lesson, but I'm ready for more. More peace, more purpose, more joy. And you don't have to wait for permission. You are the permission. You are the turning point. There will come a time in your life when you realize you don't have to defend yourself with words. You don't have to convince anyone who you are. You don't need to clap back, scream louder, or win every argument, because the most powerful response to doubt, disrespect, and deception is a life well lived. Let your life speak so loud that people can't ignore the truth of who you are. Not through your speeches, not through your anger, but through your fruit, through your growth, through the way you keep rising every time life tries to keep you down, the way you show up with grace when others expect you to crumble, the way you love deeply even when you've been hurt. That's the kind of statement nobody can erase. Let them talk, let them judge, let them underestimate you, but don't let them distract you. Because you're not here to perform for approval. You're here to walk in purpose. And when you let your life be the final statement, you stop needing validation. You stop chasing apologies. You stop trying to rewrite history. You just live in such a way that your success, your strength, and your peace do all the speaking for you. Sometimes silence is the loudest sermon. Sometimes restraint is the strongest response. And sometimes the best way to prove someone wrong is to stop trying to prove anything at all. Just live, just rise. Just keep walking in the direction of who you were meant to become. Because the truth, they don't remember the ones who screamed. They remember the ones who overcame. The ones who rose from the ashes. The ones who heal without revenge. The ones who stayed true when no one was clapping for them. That's power. That's legacy. People may lie about you. They may twist your story. They may throw dirt on your name, but dirt can't cover the light. Dirt can't stop destiny. Let them bury you, but like a seed, rise anyway. You don't need to get even, you need to get moving. Because nothing hits harder than peace that was built through storms. Nothing silences gossip louder than elevation. Let your discipline, your character, your consistency do the talking. Let your victories tell the truth they tried to bury. Let your life be the mic drop, the final word, the closing chapter. Because at the end of it all, the realest statement is becoming everything they said you couldn't be. There's a sacred kind of strength and quiet perseverance when you wake up every morning and keep going, even when your heart is heavy, even when the world misunderstands you, even when people throw stones hoping to watch you break. You pick up those stones and you build with them. You build a life that's not about revenge, but redemption. A life that's not built to please the crowd, but to honor the calling. And when you get to that place, that deep, unshakable place, you stop chasing people and start chasing purpose. You realize the greatest clapback is your comeback. The best defense is your discipline. The ultimate statement is your elevation. Not because you had something to prove, but because you refuse to let pain define your path. You let it refine you instead. That's the difference. Some people spend their whole lives trying to prove they're right, but the ones who change the world, they just live right. They walk with integrity. They love with boldness. They move with peace. And in the end, their life becomes a legacy that speaks for itself. You don't need to shout when your life already echoes the truth. You are not here to beg people to see your worth. You're here to walk in it. You're here to embody it. Because real power isn't noisy. It's undeniable. Real power doesn't need approval. It doesn't need to be flashy or loud. It just is. And when you start living like that, you stop reacting to every little thing. You stop explaining your journey to people who were never meant to understand it. You stop defending your choices to people who wouldn't have survived your battles. You stop arguing about your value because your life becomes the proof. The way you treat people, the way you carry yourself, the way you keep going with integrity, that becomes your message. So when they come for your character, let your consistency speak. When they mock your dreams, let your discipline speak. When they try to pull you back, let your future speak. And when it's all said and done, let your peace be the final punctuation. Because your life is not just a story, it's a statement. And if you keep walking with purpose, there's not a lie loud enough to drown out the truth of your progress. People will try to define you by the chapters they walked in on. They'll act like they know your whole story when they only read one page. But you've got to remember, you are the author. You hold the pen. And what they say about you, that's not the final statement. What they assume about you, that's not the full truth. The full truth is written in how you carry yourself when no one is watching. How you treat others when you have every right to be bitter. How you stay faithful even when everything seems to be falling apart. That's the part they don't see, but that's the part that defines you. Stop wasting time correcting false narratives. Stop trying to edit someone else's version of your story. Focus on writing a better one with your life. Let them talk, let them speculate. Meanwhile, you build, you grow, you rise, because in the end, the story that stands is the one that was lived, not the one that was whispered. Let your transformation be louder than their judgment. Let your elevation be more consistent than their criticism. Let your life speak such truth that no lie can survive next to it. We live in a world that rewards noise, that celebrates clapping back, exposing people, going viral for drama. But real power doesn't need an audience. It doesn't need applause. It doesn't need to broadcast every move. Because when you know who you are, when you're anchored in purpose, you stop performing for the crowd. You start performing for God, for destiny, for the future version of you that's counting on your discipline today. You start making moves in silence, not secrecy, but security. Because when your foundation is built on character, not clout, your life begins to speak in ways that no argument ever could. So while others are wasting energy on proving points, you're building platforms. While they're posting for attention, you're planting for impact. And when the results start showing, when your peace becomes unshakable, your growth undeniable, your joy unexplainable, that's when your life becomes the final statement. Not because you silenced them, but because you outgrew them. Not because you won the debate, but because you won your soul back. That's real success. That's a legacy. That's a statement worth living for. There's a fire inside you that was never meant to be dimmed by doubt. A purpose inside you that cannot be validated by applause. So when people misunderstand you, mislabel you, or try to minimize your mission, remember this. Your response doesn't have to be verbal. It can be transformational. Don't waste your breath proving what your results will confirm. Don't throw away your peace trying to correct someone's limited perspective. Because some people only respect what they can't deny. And when your life becomes evidence of your endurance, your growth, your heart, that's when the doubters go silent. That's when the haters fade into the background. Because you've become too focused, too elevated, too anointed to entertain the noise. Your life is a message. Your integrity is a microphone. Your discipline is the delivery. Let your healing scream louder than your hurt. Let your wisdom outweigh your wounds. Let your journey shine so bright it blinds every lie ever spoken about you. That's the statement the world can't argue with. That's the truth no shade can cancel. Let your life be the final statement and make it so strong, so true, so impactful that nothing else even matters. The old version of you might have argued, might have fought for attention, might have tried to prove to the world that you were enough, but not anymore. Now you've grown. Now you've evolved. Now you realize that your energy is too expensive to spend on anything that doesn't serve your higher self. So you let go. You detach. Not because you don't care, but because you care too much about your purpose to keep getting pulled into pettiness. You realize that healing requires silence, that progress requires boundaries, and that peace often comes when you stop trying to convince others and start aligning with truth. So while they're busy watching your steps, you're busy walking in favor. While they're stuck in drama, you're stepping into destiny. And that right there, that's the statement. That's the moment the old you dies and the real you is born. Not through words, not through war, but through wisdom. Through quiet, relentless, unstoppable elevation. Let them wonder, let them watch, but above all, let your life show them what grace under fire really looks like. You've been through too much to play small now. You've fought too many battles to settle for proving points. Your survival, your resilience, your transformation, it's already a statement louder than any insult they could ever throw your way. So the next time someone questions your value, doubts your journey, or tries to dim your light, don't respond with rage. Respond with results. Let your love be louder than their hate. Let your consistency crush every criticism. Let your focus drown out every distraction. You're not here to react, you're here to rise. You're not here to fit in, you're here to shine. And when it's all said and done, it won't be your opinions that define you. It'll be the lives you touched, the obstacles you overcame, the peace you carried, the love you gave even when it wasn't returned. That's the legacy. That's the mic drop. That's the truth no one can delete. So live every day like it's a message to the world, because it is. You are the walking proof that purpose wins, peace heals. When all is said and done, remember this: your greatest statement isn't in the noise you make, but in the life you live. You don't need to convince the world of your worth through arguments, explanations, or desperate efforts to be seen. When you walk in your truth, when you stay grounded in who you are, your life begins to speak for itself. Your endurance becomes your introduction, your peace becomes your presence, and your growth becomes your defense. The loudest power doesn't always come from shouting, it often rises from quiet resilience. You don't need to lower yourself to respond to every accusation or defend yourself against every attack. Just live in a way that reflects your integrity, your discipline, your compassion, and your vision. Let your daily choices be the clearest reflection of your character. Let the way you rise, the way you heal, the way you show up, even after being broken, be the response no one can deny. The truth always echoes through time, even when it's ignored in the moment. You don't need to rush your process to make a point. Stay consistent, stay faithful, and above all, stay peaceful. In a world obsessed with noise, your silence will speak volumes. In a culture that rewards outrage, your calm will shine with strength. And in a time where everyone's trying to prove something, your steady walk in purpose will be undeniable. The people who tried to tear you down may never admit your growth, but they will witness it. They will see it, even if they never say it. That's the beauty of a life built on truth. It doesn't need permission to be powerful. There will always be those who misunderstand your silence, misread your peace, or underestimate your strength. Let them. Let your focus be so intense that distraction can't reach you. Let your purpose be so clear that pettiness feels irrelevant. And when the world looks at you, let them see someone who never needed to scream to be heard. Someone who didn't need to win the argument because they chose to win their soul instead. Someone who carried themselves with dignity when they had every reason to fall apart. Your life is not just a journey. It's a message, a statement not written in words, but in the way you rise, love, lead, and live. So let it speak, let it shine, let it echo, and let it be remembered not for the noise you made, but for the peace, strength, and truth you carried with you. Thank you for walking through this message with your heart open. Thank you for staying true to yourself even when the world tried to reshape you. Keep living in purpose. Keep rising in silence. And never forget, your life is the final word. God bless you. Stay strong and keep walking tall.